Okay, and I think that is it. We're live. It is 5 p.m. on Tuesday. So we are here at Live at 5. If you're here, I'm glad. I was about to say, if you're here, I'm glad you're here. And then I realized I just said that. So how many times can you say that in one sentence? Anyways, it still stands. If you're here, I'm glad you're here. We got some good stuff going tonight, including we're going to do what we did last month and spin the wheel to see who's going to be getting a $100 gift card to Amazon, which is, in my opinion, the best prize we've given out here on Immerse's end. Not quite as good as the picking $100 to wherever you want. Brackets got us beat on that one. But yeah, Amazon's cool and get whatever you want. So we will be drawing for that here in a minute. And the only other announcement I have is that it's May now, as you guys know, and we're counting hours for Work Hard, Play Harder. So if you are employed and able to send your work schedule or your pay stubs to your coach so they can track how many hours you've been working from now until the beginning of August, you should do that because we'll take you to Branson for a weekend and it'll be fantastic. So I see Deidre's here. I see Cheyenne is here. I am going to pull up the chat on my other screen. But if you're here, check in, let us know how things are going. Oh, let me mute this. There we go. All right, Cheyenne and Deidre, I got 3 watching. Perfect. Well, I don't really have anything to check in with. Things are going fine for me. My SMART goals are almost done. I think the only other thing I have to get is a few picture frames for things I've put up on the wall. So that is pretty cool. But yeah, I gotten a lot of furniture, gotten some stuff for the kitchen. Another goal I had, my lease is up this month on the 31st, and we got a renewal offer today. So I'll be signing the lease. So my big goals are going to be knocked out of the way. Now, on a much less significant note, but something I just want to share because it was so bizarre, was my roommate's fan. She had it on in her room and it just flew out of the ceiling while it was on. That happened on Sunday. It was like the weirdest thing that has ever happened in our house. So just a reminder to you guys, if you want to check in with like weird stuff that's going on in your lives, feel free to do that. Some people call this high-low buffalo. Your high is like your high of the week, your low is your low, and then your buffalo is like something weird, something funny that happened to you. So you guys are obviously welcome to do that. But I'm very glad that my roommate was not in her room when her ceiling fan fell off. So she was safe. We were all okay. So anyways, there's Shay. Hey, girl. So I'm going to go ahead and spin our wheel. It's 5:06, so we'll just get moving along. I'm sure we'll have some more as we progress throughout the evening. So let me go and share my screen so we can do that. All right, you have to let me know. It looks good on my end. I'm going to check over here and make sure that my screen sharing is working. And of course, there's a little delay, but it should look like a big old wheel. So how we do this is each of you, for however many times you attended in the past month, that's how many times your name is on the wheel. So I'm just going to spin it right here in the middle, one time, one click, and then it's going to pick one of you guys at random. So, and I want you guys to hear it because it sounds awesome. So I'm going to make sure my sound is on. Good. Okay. You guys ready? Here we go. Oh, it's Arrow. Very cool. You know, I don't know that Arrow has been with us on a Live at 5 yet, but I know that they have been attending some other courses that we're offering throughout the week. So if you guys are a little bit confused, that is why. But congratulations, Arrow. You are going to enjoy $100 to Amazon. That's going to be awesome. And to those of you who didn't get it, better luck next time. But just remember that the more you attend throughout the week, the more likely you are to get it. So just something to think about. And that is all I have for announcements. I'm going to stop my screen sharing. Oh, it says new share. I'm realizing how few times I've shared my screen. I don't know how to stop it. Oh, perfect. That's one way to do it. All right. So that transition was super helpful. Without further ado, everyone, Lindsay will take it away. And as you guys have requested, we're going to be talking about debt. So you guys listen up, okay?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Casey, and welcome everyone. This was the topic that was requested last time. We started our finance series, which we're going to do for the next few weeks. So the last time we talked about debit versus credit. I gave you guys some resources on credit cards and how to, build credit, especially if you have low or no credit. This time we're going to talk about what happens when you do not pay your debt. And that can be a loan. It could be a payment. It could be like for utilities, like your internet, like electricity. It could be your rent, car, whatever it is, credit card. We're going to talk about just some of the impacts that happen from that. Okay, so it can affect your housing. So especially if you have collection claims against you, a low credit score, bankruptcy, that will affect your ability, certainly to own a home, but definitely in renting. A lot of renters will pull a credit report or some other report, background check, and they'll be able to see that, and they might deny you the ability to rent. Same with vehicles. Anytime that you go to finance a vehicle purchase, a loan could be denied because of a low credit score or any outstanding claims. So maybe you haven't paid your credit card in a few months. That's going to show up and you could be denied that loan. If you are not denied the loan and they go ahead and approve you, it most likely will be at a much higher interest rate. So anytime that you want to take out a vehicle loan, car, new credit card, anything like that, you will have a much higher interest rate if you are approved. And then kind of like and then if you were to go, get a house, for example, maybe in the future, even up to 7-10 years from now, they would make you borrow at a higher interest rate, which could be a pretty significant difference to your monthly payment. Some employers run a credit report. Most run a background check. These things could show up, especially if you've defaulted on rent and your renter has like a criminal claim against you. That would show up on a background check. Your credit report would show any outstanding claims. So that could affect your ability to get a job. Banks might not let you open an account until you resolve any outstanding balances with other banks. So, maybe you have some bad history with the bank, you've overdrafted too many times, overdrawn too many times, they won't let you use your debit card anymore. You go to a new bank, you try to open up a new account, they're like, nope, you got to go to the first bank and get that settled. Definitely your credit score, right? That's going to affect your credit score. The longer that your debt goes unpaid, the lower your credit score will be. It will also affect your ability to improve your credit score if you have too much debt against you. So they're going to look at your debt to income ratio, and they'll use that information to calculate your credit score and also how quickly you've been able to pay down your debts. So if you have too many credit cards, plus rent, plus a car payment, plus a student loan, all of those count against you and are hits against your credit score. And then also just like from a human level, carrying around the financial burden and stress, that's the number one stressor in relationships. Couples, next to kids and finance are the number one reasons and causes for divorce or breakups. It does bring a lot of stress to a family and personal environment. And then also to yourself. I mean, you might have like gut stress, you might be tired, have trouble sleeping, or appetite might change. You'll carry on anxiety just from this additional financial burden. Okay, so this is what happens. There's no set rule, but let's say you like defaulted on your internet payment. Like you couldn't make the payment that month. You're like, you know what? I think I can let this one slide. I need to make rent first and I got to pay my car first, but you like don't pay your internet. Well, in a case like this or any other like credit card or whatever, it's usually 180 days, which is about 6 months before it goes to collections. So there's that 180-day period where you have the opportunity to pay back your defaulted payment, to pay on that defaulted payment. So after that, those 6 months, it goes to collections. And it really hits your credit score and affects your all the other things that we just talked about. So it's going to go to a first collector. Okay, and so once it goes to collections, there's probably an unappealing like payment schedule. You're going to have to pay it back in one time. There might be additional interest associated with that, and it could get go into legal battle. So and it obviously it affects your credit score. But the first step would be the first collector, and you kind of lose the ability to pay back the original lender. And then after a few months, it gets passed down to another collection agency. And that's how it works. They just like keep passing them down to other agencies. There are collection agencies that buy up debt. So they say, okay, yeah, first agency, I'll buy your debt from you. And after a few months, you know, they have their hand in it. And it's sort of like this trickle down effect. So yeah, typically like they'll go like a few months, like I said, before they repeat the process. And this can take years. It's going to take as long as the debt is paid back. So that could be months, it could be years. I didn't know this, but you can actually stop the phone calls. So apparently, debt collectors, they call, they're hounding you, trying to get you to pay. It's annoying, right? It's a nuisance, especially if you're working in an office. Like you don't need your phone blowing up at the office or while you're on your shift or you're trying to whatever. You're at home with your family. But what you can do is actually write a written request to have them stop calling you. Not all collection agencies will respect this request. You can file a complaint against them with the Federal Trade Commission, and they could step in on your behalf. That's actually why there's so many complaints against, there's more complaints against collection agencies than any other industry because they're just notorious for hounding people. Here's the thing. When you make one written request, whenever the collection agency passes it off to another collection agency, you'll have to do like a new written request because they don't pass off records, files, things like that when it goes from one agency to another. There's also this thing called credit reporting time limit. So while it's in collections, it is going to hit your credit until this time limit has expired. And then it finally falls off your credit report. So even if you pay it back, let's say you miss an internet bill, you couldn't pay it, you didn't have a job for a while, you had to like sacrifice some things, you let it go, went into collections. By the time I got to the third collection agency, you finally were able to like resolve that debt. Well, even after you pay it back, it's still on your credit report for 7 years. Yeah, so things like credit card payments, other collections, that stays on your credit card and your credit report for 7 years. There's a couple of exceptions to that, like you can see. Charge-offs is when it goes to collection and they say, okay, like this person's obviously never going to pay us back, and they do a charge-off. So it's from that day that they say, okay, this person's never going to pay us back, plus 180 days, 6 months, and 7 years. So it's a little bit longer. Yeah, pretty much everything else. Bankruptcy, 10 years from the date that you file. Hard inquiries, that's whenever you go get a loan. Like, so you go get a loan for, you want to finance a car, a credit card. Anytime someone pulls your credit report, that's a hard inquiry, and that stays on your credit report for 2 years. That's important, and we talked about this last time, because the more hard inquiries that you have, the lower your credit score goes. So that's when I was saying, if you knew that you were about to make a big change in your life and you needed to kind of prioritize housing, and you knew that you were going to buy a car soon, and that you might open a credit card, you might do the credit card last, because you don't want to pull a credit card, open a credit card, and you'll get a loan to get a car. And they're like, no, you've got too much open right now. We're not going to give you this car. And now you don't have transportation. So sort of think about like, okay, I can only open so many lines of credit. How will I prioritize those? Okay, so let's say that you apply for a job, they pull your credit report. A lot of companies do not do this, but let's say they do. Or if you go try to open up a credit card and you're denied, or get a loan and you're denied, they have to give you a copy of your credit report. They have to give you the documentation they used to deny you. So they're going to give you a copy of that. And that's helpful because you can look at all of your defaults, your hard inquiries, everything that's on your credit report. And if there's something that you want to dispute, then you can call and dispute it. Or if there's several different debts on there, I told you guys this last time, start with the smallest one first. You can also consolidate them under one debt. Sometimes you have the option to do that. The reason why you want to start with the smallest debt first, again, is because that will fall off your credit report. It'll show as paid. And so if you start at the biggest one, it's going to take you longer to do that. But if you start at the smallest one, that'll happen quicker. It falls off your credit report. And now instead of 4 debts, you have 3 debts on there.
Hey, Lindsay, we've got a question real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So Shay is asking, what if you are getting collection mail, but your debt is from medical bills that were supposed to be paid by insurance?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to work that out with insurance. You will have to call your insurance company and say, I'm getting these claims. You'll have to provide them the documentation and work that out with them. If you need assistance, I know there's lawyers that help and specialize in that. If you call your insurance company and you're still getting stonewalled and they're not willing to work with you, and I'm sure they're not, because that means they have to pay. But if after you go through that process and you need more help, reach out to Casey and we'll see if we can give you some more information about how to work that process. But yeah, if you're getting notices, that's still in your credit report. Okay, so you're going to want to address that as soon as possible because that's hurting you. So just, call the insurance company as soon as you can and say, hey, I'm getting these notices. How can you help me?
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Lindsay. I will say this is something that I have encountered that can be somewhat common. So I'm going to throw this out there just in case it's what's going on, because I literally was talking to another youth about this yesterday. And if you take an ambulance, so ambulances are not always covered by insurance, and a lot of people think they are. But if you take an ambulance to the ER hospital, and after the fact, they determined that it wasn't like a real emergency based on their criteria, they will charge you the full amount for that ambulance ride. So that is something that I've seen more than once. So that could be it. Just something to think about. Yeah, and just FYI for everyone, because I didn't know that. I thought if you took an ambulance, there wasn't really any questions you had to ask. But apparently, if they deem it's not an emergency after the fact, they can charge you the full amount. So thanks, Lindsay. And I had a question for my own, I can't think of the words, just out of my curiosity. Is it possible to have debt collectors after you and you not know it? Like, are they really good about trying to contact you? Like maybe if your address is changing frequently or your phone number's changed, is it possible to like not really know what's going on with your debt?
Maybe it's unlikely. I mean, debt collect, they're really good at what they do, and they will find your email, or not your email, your phone number. And even if you change addresses, I mean, they will also get a hold of your family members. If they cannot get a hold of you, then they will try to get second degree, third degree family members. And they're very good at trying to hunt you down. They're bounty hunters of like debt collectors.
Okay. But yeah, I wanted to ask because I've heard that. Like I've heard that they will get a hold of you. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that was my question. Thanks, Lindsay.
Oh, sure. Because if they don't get paid, then they're going to pass it on to someone else. And so they're trying to get paid as quickly as possible. Yeah, and if for whatever reason something pops up, you can do like free credit scores that are not hard inquiries, like what we talked about. So it won't hit your credit report. So there are free credit report companies that aren't technically pulling a full credit report where you'd be able to, check on something like that if there's a claim against you. And maybe if you're starting out and you're kind of concerned, you might do that every 6 months or once a year, just periodically, so you can stay on top of, what's going on. Okay, so here's the thing. Debt collectors can sue you for debt, and it can be for any amount. It can be $5 or $5,000. And if they are awarded a judgment in their favor, so a collection agency decides to sue you, and the judge says, "Yep, you're right," they can garnish your wages until the amount is paid in full. So that's why it's so important to not ignore collection agencies, is because there will be a summons. And even if you don't show up in court, that's worse against you. It's like one of those situations where ignoring the problem will not make the problem go away. You're going to have to negotiate with the collection agency. If they take you to court, you will have to make an appearance. You can speak on your behalf. Maybe you can work with a lawyer, potentially at no cost to you. But what you don't want to happen is to continue to ignore it until they garnish your wages. Okay, so repossession. So maybe your car is repossessed. Every state is different. So, and it's kind of by lender too. So the lender gets to say, if you miss one payment, we can repossess. 2 payments, we can repossess. So if you take a loan out on a car, if you finance a car, it is so important that you ask them, if I default on a payment, what will happen? Like, what is basically like the repossession policy? Because you need to know if it's 1 payment, 2 payments, whatever it is. That way you can plan for it. If repossession happens, it can occur as soon as 10 days after you miss 1 payment. So it can happen really soon. And then they have the opportunity to go turn around and sell your vehicle. So you miss 1 payment, 10 days later, they come and get it, and then they can turn around within 10 days and sell it to someone else. But Arkansas does have that period where there's a certain time after they take your vehicle, after it's repossessed, that there is a grace period where you can dispute it. Most lenders, it's 90 days that you've defaulted on your loan before they'll repossess. But I just wanted to make it clear that it could just be 1 payment and it could be 10 days after that. Eviction, there's different types of eviction. The first 2 that we're going to talk about are the civil and criminal. Civil is 3 days notice. Criminal, 10 days notice. And if you don't move out within 3 days or 10 days, then they can do a formal complaint and it goes to court. Now, what happens in any of these cases is if it goes to court and the judge makes a judgment against you, and they should say tenant, not tenant, then basically they're going to give you another notice. And if you're not out within that time, a sheriff will come and assist you with eviction. So you don't want it to get to that point. And you have to check your terms too on your lease, like how how many payments can you miss? It's usually defaulted if it's not paid within 5 days of when it's due. That's when it's like, okay, now it's defaulted. That's Arkansas law. And then depending on which route they want to take, it could be a 3 days to move out or 10 days to move out. They could also has nothing to do with debt, but if you're not upholding your responsibilities as a tenant, so whatever you signed in your lease agreement, if they think that you are not upholding to that, let's say you're in a no smoking apartment and your roommate is smoking up a storm, they can get you out. If it's a weekly rent schedule, then they can evict you in 7 days. If it's a monthly, they can give you a 30 days notice. Criminal activity, they don't have to give you a notice. They can just evict you and get the sheriff there to escort you out. Okay.
Sorry, I tried to mute myself and then I hit the button next to it. Oh, are we at the end?
Yeah, we're at the end.
Oh, okay, perfect, because we got some good questions. Following, because we just talked about evictions, I had an interesting question I wanted to touch on real quick. Someone asked, is Arkansas one of the worst places to rent? Based off of what I have heard, there are not a lot of laws in Arkansas that protect renters compared to other states. That's all that I know, and that's been off of what I was told. Lindsay, have you heard anything like that, or do you have other information?
I haven't seen any information that would tell me that it's one of the worst states to rent from. But I can share a link when I share this presentation with you, Casey. I'll share my source that I got this from Arkansas's government website that has like more detailed descriptions. But I can't speak to like how much protection versus another state.
Right.
But I didn't see anything that gave me like pause or concern that Arkansas might be overly strict.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that, Sierra, because that is something that I've heard, but I have no information to back that up. So based off of what I've been told by people, in some people's opinions, yes, it is, but I can't really say if that's a fact. I feel like that question it depends on who you ask, So, but apparently rental laws are different from state to state. And there are some states that have more laws that kind of go around tenants protection than Arkansas does. That's just what I've heard though. So, and then one other question, can you get a loan to pay off bills, even the ones from collection agencies, and then have a set period of time to pay off the loan?
Yeah, so you can do debt consolidation. It really depends though on your history, because you're gonna have to find a lender, a creditor that's willing to loan you that amount, and it depends on the amount too and your history. A lot of people do it. It's very possible where you can consolidate your debt basically under one debt, have a fixed interest rate for all of your debt, which by the way, you want to compare like which one's worse, right? But yeah, I mean, that is an option for you. I will also say that a lot of people, before it even gets to that point, I know we talked about defaulting on payments. You can oftentimes call your car lender, sometimes credit cards, sometimes utilities, but you don't just skip a payment without first calling and saying, I'm out of employment right now, or my employment has changed. And a lot of places will work with you on a new payment schedule, or they will freeze your debt. And so basically you have no payments for like a 6-month period or something. So just before I know it's really stressful as you get up to that due date, and collection notices come in, and I know it's so challenging to pick up the phone and call them and face them. But I offer that because a lot of places will work with you to have a reduced payment plan, or they'll put your debt on freeze.
Cool. Very helpful information, Lindsay. Thank you. And whoever asked that question, I would highly encourage you to talk to your coach. You know, our coaches are happy to help with that sort of thing and help you figure out what's going to be the best route for you. So, yeah. Well, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that. I almost had a collection agency called on me at one point because I totally forgot I had a bill. But thankfully, they called me before and I was like, I had no idea. So that was like when I was first trying to be an adult. Apparently, I had a bill I didn't know about for some reason. So pretty close call, but debt's no fun. But if you are in debt, you can get out of it. It's tough, but it's totally possible. But if you can stay out of debt, that's good. It's probably where you want to be. So, yeah. Well, I am going to put out one more ask for questions. If you guys have any questions or comments about debt. Again, if we've had more people join us, congratulations to Arrow, who won the $100 Amazon gift card. Super awesome. Congrats, Arrow. And they actually joined us. Arrow was active in the chat for just a little bit. So they joined us, which is awesome. Glad to have you, Arrow. And another question, what about debt after someone dies? That's the question. So we might want a little bit more info, but I'm assuming the question is what happens if maybe you or someone you know has debt and then passes, what happens to it then? Maybe that's the question.
Yes, it normally just gets written off. And there are some exceptions to that, but like if your parents or sibling, if they pass, I know people, I've had friends whose parents have passed and like, oh my God, I'm going to take on like all my mom's credit card debt. That was not the case. So it was written off. It was actually taken from the trust. So any, lawyers got involved, but sometimes it comes from like their banking, their personal banking. And so it might resolve their open debts before there's any inheritance or anything else. But it's kind of like a case by case, depending on how wills and trust and the debt and everything, how that's all set up. But I know it's very unlikely that you will have to assume the debt of someone else. Now, if you're joint on that account, then yes, you would have to assume that debt. So if you sign a credit card with someone, if you have a joint account with someone, then you would take on that debt.
Okay, that's good to know. So if you guys are getting joint accounts with anyone, keep that in mind. It's a big burden to bear potentially, but aren't we glad we don't have to inherit our parents' debt, because that sometimes, most of the time, has nothing to do with us. So that's good that you don't have to take it from someone, and that if you pass, you don't have to burn it onto someone else. So that is good. Okay, here's another question. How long after debt will your credit score go up? And then correction to debt paid off, I mean.
Yeah, so it's not gonna fall off until we reach these thresholds. So it will affect your credit for at least this long, even after you pay it off. So even after you pay off your credit card bills, your collections, it will still stay on your credit report 7 years. That doesn't mean that your credit score won't go up in that time. It won't go up as quickly. And it kind of depends on how quickly and how much you are paying back your other debts. So it's really like a case by case scenario. If you defaulted on medical bills and that's the only debt that you have, and then you finally pay it off, it's still going to stick around for 7 years. But if you don't have any other debt, you're not borrowing from anyone else, then it's going to go up quicker, as if you also had like a car payment, rent, utility bills, credit card. So it just kind of depends on how much debt you have out there and how frequently and how much you're paying this off. If you're just paying the minimum payment, that's good, but that's not going to pay off your debt as quickly or improve your credit score as quickly as if you were making double payments or paying the full statement amounts.
Perfect. Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, this chart is super helpful. Cool. All right. Well, I think that is it for now. Thanks, Lindsay, for all this info. You guys know that we always, these get automatically posted to the YouTube when we're done. So if you ever want to go back and rewatch this, if you want to gain more info, or if maybe you weren't super clear about something we talked about, you can go back and watch it at your own pace. Definitely just wanted to remind you guys. But we will go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. If you guys were here with us, thanks so much. We got 6 people watching, which is awesome. And so I've got the 5 of you down that were attending. So yeah, you guys have a great week, and we will